Chapter 1 The First Encounter. The rain fell in steady, relentless sheets over the city of Greywood. A melancholic symphony that harmonized with the tired rhythm of heartbeats echoing underneath the heavy beat of the drops. Neon lights flickered under the dampness, casting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the slick pavement, blurring the line between reality and the haunting shadows that gorged themselves on the silence of the night. Detective Alara Quinn adjusted her coat, pulling it tighter around her as she stepped into the narrow alleyways that led away from the bustling streets of Old Town. The alley reeked of stale cigarettes and something far worse. Partially rotting refuse mixed with the bitterness of lost dreams. She turned up the collar of her coat, her breath visible in the chill of the night. Another missing person. Another case to crack open like a sacred vault. Hoping that the contents would provide answers, and perhaps closure. After months of chasing ghosts, Alara was beginning to feel like one herself, her fair, disheveled hair whipped against her cheeks. Caught in a gust of wind while she navigated through puddles that distorted her reflection into grotesque shapes. Now in her 30s, her deep-set green eyes had seen far too many fractured lives in the rear view of her career. And she had become adept at hiding the pain that flickered behind them. Tonight, she was following a lead, an anonymous tip that she had received earlier that evening, a voice soaked in fear. Whispered directions that led her away from the familiar confines of her office at the precinct, and into the grips of the unknown. The tip had been vague, mentioning a connection between her latest missing person, Alyssa Monroe, and an unaddressed figure lingering in the shadows of a local bar notorious for its unsavory clientele. The Grim Reaper, they called it. It was as if they said the name in a hushed reverence, more out of fear than respect. With graffiti strewn across its weathered walls and a neon sign flickering by sheer willpower, the tavern served as much as a haven for the downtrodden as it did for the lost, much like Alara herself. As she approached the entrance, the air thickened with smoke, and the muted pulse of a rock ballad seeped through the door. It clung to her skin as she stepped inside, her senses bombarded by the heady scent of whiskey and desperation. Low, whispered conversations flickered out like fireflies in the dim light. Patrons leaned over the bar, some nursing their drinks, others wrapped in their own tales of misfortune. "Can I help you?" The bartender, grizzled and sharp in contrast to the chaotic environment, towered over her. His tattooed arms held the weight of stories untold. "I'm looking for someone, the Grim Reaper." Alara knew it was risky to ask, but the urgency of the case dragged her past caution. He raised a brow, the ambiguity of his expression faltering momentarily. "You got a death wish or something?" He chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "More like trying to save a life," she replied, her jaw set. The bartender studied her for a moment, his gaze assessing before nodding discreetly towards the back of the bar. "2 tables over, you'll find a guy who might know. He doesn't like to be disturbed, though." Alara's heart raced as she made her way through the throng, her eyes honing in on the figure cloaked in shadow. The man sat hunched over a table in the corner, a half-empty glass of something amber cradled in his hands. His dark hair fell over his face, the signature look of a man who had learned the art of avoidance. He felt her presence before she reached him, his posture stiffening as she approached. Cloaked in the unease that seemed to thrum like an uninvited guest, the air shimmered with tension, a fragile veil that separated 2 worlds, hers and his. "Detective Quinn." With determination, she introduced herself, keeping her voice steady despite the tumult behind her ribcage. His gaze traveled over her carefully, and for a heartbeat, it felt like they were intruding on something sacred. "I don't talk to cops," he muttered, his voice low and gravelly, yet tinged with something familiar that sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. "Then you'll forgive me if I insist." She pressed, slipping into the seat opposite him, undeterred by the chilliness of his demeanor. "I'm looking for Alyssa Monroe. She was last seen around this area." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, Alara could almost see the wheels turning in his mind, weighing the wisdom of a refusal against the reality of her dogged persistence. Chapter 2 Case of the Mysterious Note. Alara pushed her damp hair back from her face as she stepped into the warmth of the precinct. The distinct scent of coffee mingled with the faint smell of cigarette smoke that clung to the air. A chatter of voices, punctuated by the muted